Previously on From.
I'll just get this fucking thing off of me.
Oh!
My ankle. It's okay to...
Let's get her back to camp.
I want to catch one of those things.
We need to learn about them. We catch one, we make it tough.
Hey, maybe we switch tonight. I'll take the bus.
Why? Because I want to watch our friends when they come out of the woods tonight.
We need to build a fort. And I'm gonna tell a story.
Those are crops?
Yeah, we figured we'd try composting them.
Whatever's going on, I promise it'll pass. Is my baby okay? Let's see what the cards have to say.
Randy used to call it the bottle tree.
The original's in Park, a few towns over.
Miranda made that for me.
This can be real. I found this in the diner. Pull over right now.
No! We're going!
Where am I?
It's a tree in the middle of the road.
Hello from fans. Episode 3 is out and there's a lot going on in this episode. Is Tabitha actually back in Fromville? What does the bracelet mean? What are the red rocks? Why is Jade seeing the Puritan man with one eye? Will Kristy survive the bear trap? And what is Victor digging up? What will Fatima's tarot fortune tell her? And who called Jim on the phone? Hello, my friends. I am the movie guru, and it's another great week to be a From fan. And this week on episode 3 of our favorite show has hit the net, titled Mousetrap. So a mousetrap is a device or machine whose structure or function suggests a system to be used figuratively to describe a trick or strategy to ensnare someone. And that's exactly what goes on in this episode. We see Tabitha being tricked and trapped. We see Kristy being tricked and trapped. And we see that methodology over and over again. When the episode ends, we see the ambulance pull up to the down tree. And all my From fans know, when you see the tree, it's already too late. So it looks like Tabitha will be making her return to Fromville. And on one side, I'm really happy she'll potentially be back with her kids. But of course, on the flip side, I'm sad she's back to this torturous nights in the town. It looks like the creators changed the names of some of the episodes because an early picture I had episode 3 titled There and Back Again, while episode 2 was titled Mousetrap, instead of the current title When We Go. Now, the episode description says that Kenny leads a group into the forest in search of food as Donna and Ellis try to talk Boyd out of a dangerous plan. Meanwhile, Tabitha makes a mind-bending discovery. So what could this mind-bending discovery be? Well, how about that she's still in Fromville? Looking at Tabitha's story first, we see Henry sleeping in the living room after seemingly going through the lunchbox. Now, I do believe Victor gave Tabitha a talisman, and we can see it there on the table wrapped up in newspaper. So he wakes up and goes in the kitchen to see Tabitha breaking stuff. But, the real question that I want to know is, why does Tabitha keep passing out? In episode 2, after she arrives at the house, Henry says she passed out on the porch. Now, let me think about this for a minute. From our perspective, we last saw her, she was fine. The scene cuts, and then while the scene has cut, she passes out and Henry drags her body in the house. Okay, neighbors, nobody sees this. Okay, this whole situation just got a whole lot more creepy and suspicious. Now, after Henry was done talking to her in the living room and they look on the computer and he finds out that he possibly believes her, he takes her to the backyard. He says, this is where Miranda recreated her bottle tree designs from her installments, and the original one that she created is 1 or 2 towns over. Now, the tree in the backyard is not exactly the same as its fromville counterpart, and it doesn't have a tree hollow in the middle that is used for their whatever the transportation is. But they leave the house and get in Henry's rust bucket, and I was trying to look it up, but I'm not sure what year the car is, but I'm willing to bet that it is a 1978 Oldsmobile or something like that. Now, we see them leaving the house, and we can see a clear shot of the house number, which is 1597. Now, I stated this in a couple other videos, and there's been some posts on Facebook that 1597 is a Fibonacci number. And why is it so important? Well, the Facebook group member BG came up with this theory, so I definitely give him his credit. And the Fibonacci numbers can also be used to define a spiral in an area of interest to biologists and physicists because they are frequently observed in various natural objects and a phenomenon, most notably the universe, follows. So this Fibonacci sequence takes place all throughout the world and also in our daily lives. So what does it mean? It means that this is the location that will take Tabitha back to Fromville. Now, we see them pull off, and the next scene, she says she's hungry. And Henry volunteers some crackers that he has in the glove box. Now, we don't know how long they've been in there, but presumably since 1978. But she thinks this is a good idea to eat them, and she grabs the crackers, and behind the crackers is the bracelet. Now, all true OG From fans know that this means that she is not actually in the real world. Now, the bracelet is what they call MacGuffin, which means an object that serves as a trigger for the plot. So she originally saw this in the back room of the diner and now in the glove box of the car. Now she knows that this is the one she made due to the material shoelace and the flaws from that material. Now, while Henry's driving, she starts freaking out immediately and knows that this is not real. She says she's being tormented. Now, Henry, seemingly determined to not let her out of the car after she repeatedly says she wants to get out, he grabs the door, closes it shut, and speeds off and ends up in the crash. Now, she wakes up in the back of the ambulance, and we get a new introduction to the new police character, Samantha Brown, who plays Acosta, a new-to-the-force police officer. Now, both were announced as season regulars, so we know that both Henry and Acosta don't die, and which is different than what we previously thought. Now, I want to go back and show you just how far they'll go to cover information on the show. The original IMDb casting did announce Robert Joy and Samantha Brown, but only for one episode, and an uncredited patient who we now know is Tabitha. In the last shot, we see the ambulance is the daytime, but the scene from the original season 3 trailer that dropped in June, it was nightfall, and the creatures literally laid a mouse trap or a trap for them, which leads us to the next episode, which is called Mousetrap. Now, I posted this on my original trailer breakdown. I believe that this is where Randall meets his end. From the original trailer, it looks like he tried to light a Molotov cocktail. It backfired on him and he burns up. Now, they don't show us this with a picture of him actually on fire, but he seems to fall to the ground and be rolling around and covering his body like if he was burning. We do know that fire exists in this universe, and in the bar they do have alcohol, and it can happen because just in episode 2, Kenny was definitely getting ready to go into the caves and burn down all the caves and creatures after the last episode, so RIP Tien Chen. So next, we finally get the Red Rock scene with Jade. Of course, we don't know what they are yet. My first thoughts is this is the same field we saw Father Kotri in season 1, but this area seems to be further away from the town because it was the same field. I'm sure they would have found the lost villagers sooner. Now, we found out episode 1 that the lost village is abandoned and there are no cannibals actively living there. Now, we do see some remnants of leftover equipment, and at one time I thought there was a boat sort of over by where Jade is sitting, but I know that's not a boat. It's actually a horse feeder or some sort of trough. Now, we did see in episode 1, they first find the vegetables, and there was an entire lake behind them. And I'm sorry, forget the food. Let's jump right in the lake, swim to our freedom. But they totally ignored the lake. And people online were saying that this area kind of looks like the area drawn on the cave walls and could possibly be the same one. But of course, we don't know. So then we see Jade come across the red rocks and of course start having visions of a guy with his head stuck to a tree with a railroad spike. Now where he got the railroad spike from, we don't know. And we also don't know who this person is or if he's even related to that village. I mean, we have seen Jade have visions before of the Civil War. We still don't know what is the connection with that. But you know, some people have been calling this guy a Puritan ever since he appeared in the season 3 trailer this summer. And the vision that Jade is having goes away, and the next thing we see is Jade choking himself right in the middle of the field, which is witnessed by Dale. And so I was talking about this before, just the different perspectives that the audience has, right? These things are really not happening. And so, yeah, you know, him just choking himself, not crazy at all. And we see the vision disappear, but the red rocks remain, so we know at least that the red rocks are real. Now, Jade, embarrassed and mad as hell, decides to storm off in the wrong direction, and, you know, Captain Save Him, Kristy, tries to go after him. And I really don't think Jade and Kristy had too much interaction, so I don't know why she would do that. But we get the scene we've all been waiting for in the original trailer, you know, as far as whose leg was caught in that bear trap, and we find out it was Kristy's. Aha! Now, in order to get her free, they all sort of band together, Dell, Kenny, Jade, and they try to get some leverage and are able to get her free. We see that the daylight is quickly fading and is becoming nighttime, and so Jade takes a risky move and decides to grab one of the bars from the totem for better leverage. Now, we don't know if these totems have any real power or if by him doing this will awaken an evil spirit, but they free Kristy and carry her back to the village. There's no sign if this trap was set by the creatures recently since Kenny and Jim's first visit to the Lost Village, or if it was placed years ago by someone else. All we know is that Jade went in the wrong direction at first, so he was going away from the direction of the town to a seemingly uncharted territory, and the trap was there. Now, it was there for seemingly some time because the release mechanism was rusted and easily broke off when Jade tried to pull it to set Kristy free. And it didn't look like there were any active foot tracks around the trap like it had just been recently placed. Now, while trying to free Kristy, Jade goes into a trance and sees another vision while trying to help. And I'm not sure if we have ever seen Jade have two visions back to back that close, right? Usually it's a vision, different locations, and at one point we were thinking the locations trigger them, right? We know that the root locker was a place of transport for the faraway trees. We know that that tree where they tried to climb had the symbol on it, and then now seemingly these red rocks also have some sort of power as well. Next, we get an update on our favorite mother-to-be, Fatima, whose pregnancy cravings got her dumpster diving. She gets cold busted by Tilly, who sees her chowing down on some spoiled crops, and later get approached by Tilly, who tries to console her. We get this weird scene of Elgin sleeping on the couch while knitting, and we know from episode 1 that Elgin hasn't been sleeping due to this ghastly entity haunting his dreams. So I believe if we see him sleeping, either he's really isn't sleeping or he's in a dream, inside of a dream, but because he can't sleep, so we don't know. Now the scene looks just weird to me, and I'm guessing that he's there because of what happens as Tilly shuffles a tarot deck. She asks Fatima what she wants to know, and Fatima says, "Will my baby be okay?" And just as she says that, a crow slams through the window, breaking its neck. And a little fun Easter egg here is that a random guy punches the hell out the bird as it's flying around the house, and I thought that scene was really funny. It's like, dude got hands. And I do believe they're going to come into a situation where a decision has to be made, either to save Fatima or save the baby. Now, Tilly suggests to read Fatima's tarot fortune. All I want to say now is you're welcome. And I say that because about a year ago, I hosted the Popular Theory live stream where I discussed the tarot theory with its creator. And the video is still up on my page. You can check it out on my original stream on my live tab. The theory basically states that there's multiple opposing forces playing a game, and the people in the town and the colony house are pieces on a board. Now, the idea is similar to a game of Werewolf, if you heard this. The game Werewolf is a social deduction game where it can be played with 12 or more players, and I believe if you count the number of main characters, there's 12. Now, for a basic game with 12 players, you will need 1 seer, 3 werewolf cards, and a villager for each remaining player roles. Each player has a role such as a villager, werewolf, vampire. The moderator is the only person who knows each person's role. The moderator guides the game, keeping it moving and calling for votes. Villagers try to hunt down the werewolves, while werewolves try to convince the villagers they're innocent. Vampires try to kill both the werewolves and the villagers. Now, throughout season 1, there were various signs that possibly point to this, and a year ago, we collaborated on the best From series out there. So, really happy to be a part of this community, this Fromville, and always happy to talk about From. Now, in the next clip, we see Victor out in the yard of the colony house looking for his buried treasure. We've seen this clip in the original trailer, but here we find out it's a suitcase. So he goes over Sarah's house and he asks if she has some bed sheets, right? And at first glance, we like, uh-oh, is they about to get their freak on? But then he goes full Tom Hanks in Big and says, we need to build a fort and he needs to tell a story. Now, we've seen Victor do this before. The last time we saw he was in the car graveyard, he remembered that he had a sister while talking to Tabitha. Hint, hint. So who knows what repressed memories will pop out of the suitcase, changing the entire direction of the story. Now, the next storyline that we get to see is the torment of good old Jim. And we find out who's on the phone. Now, we find out that it's Thomas. Or is it? I believe that it's a creature or entity acting like Thomas. Please remember that this place can read everybody's minds and knows all the secrets and thoughts. But I will say it is uncanny that it knows Thomas's specific voice when Thomas died as an infant. Now, to me, this is a fear of being manifested through Jim because it's his worst nightmare, and this place manifests nightmares. Now, I don't know why all of a sudden it decides to bother Jim. I believe it could be that the house is haunted because the last phone call was in the same house in season 2 with Kenny. And we find out that was a dream, but we think he's awake unless they do a flashback and they show him lay down. But Jim obviously psychologically shook from the call, and his attitude is off for the entire day. And we've seen this scene in the kitchen with him and Ethan, and it's just spiraling out of control. We also get the scene from the trailer where Jim asks Boyd if things are getting worse, and he pretty much answers his own question. Now, if you guys follow my page, I'm sure you all know I'm not a fan of Jim. I've been suspicious of him ever since he turned off the highway in season 1. So, yeah, pretty much from the first episode. And it didn't help seeing him hanging upside down in the lighthouse tower for some reason, or how I feel like he purposely distracted Kenny so his mom could get barbecued. I mean, it just screams out bad guy to me. I'm not really looking too deep on this phone call because this is not the first time that the creatures have spoke to him and got him to do something. I mean, they don't really look at Jim as anybody who could possibly threaten this place, more like back up. They spoke to him in season 1 on the radio, now again on the phone, and we can never get any details about why they did that, or even who it is he's ever talking to. So I wouldn't look too deep into it. I do think it was a good cliffhanger, and I'm happy they introduced Thomas, especially because they talk about him so much. Every season, every episode is Thomas, and we finally got some Thomas action, so that's good. Now, but I do believe we did get a major clue in this scene, which is right before we see Jim answer the phone, he takes a drink from the sink. And I'm like, aha. Now, I believe that a lot of what's going on is an effect from the water and possibly the food they eat. Now, we know the creatures control electricity. They pretty much built the town before the people got there. So they have to have all this type of control over all these things. So why wouldn't they control the food and water? Now, because the show is very purposeful in showing us, the audience, things on camera, I'm starting to take a tally and going to possibly do a video on the time between someone on From takes a drink and has a vision or seizure. Now, in this episode, we get 3 solid shots of Jim, Boyd, and Jade taking drinks. Now, this could be why Jade had pretty much 2 visions back to back, and could be why Jim heard the phone ring, since the last time it was with Kenny, it was a dream. Now, I believe we need another person to be in the room with Jim when the phone rings so we can actually confirm that it's really ringing, because Jim being there alone, and from the audience perspective, it could not be real, because sometimes the show does show us things that are not real. So look, that's all I got this week, guys. What did you think of episode 3? What are your predictions for episode 4? As always, let's discuss in the comments, and please make sure that you're following and liking my content so I can continue to making more videos. I'm also running a Facebook raffle right now. Now, please help me get to 100 followers on Facebook, and I'll do a raffle for a free shirt from my merch site. Now, I really appreciate you guys for taking the time to watch this video. It's always a pleasure to talk about From, especially when season 3 is out. And so I'll put all the links in the caption, and I'll see you on the next video.